Started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avagnoni.
bringing you this week's Ascended World. So yeah, we start, of course, this is why we shouldn't get on more than 2 seconds before we get online, because we start having a conversation and then it's 5 minutes in and then we're like, oh wait, we should get online.
No, this is what we should talk about.
So, well, there is the obvious that there's a lot coming up in the collective right now, right? So,
Right.
Like, we don't have any needs to be a motto there.
No, I don't think so.
But what's really important is what's coming up for us individually as part of the collective. And
Morning, Yasmin.
morning, Yasmin. And so why don't we just start with, because we had an even more challenging time on Friday coming to a topic for this week than the week before, because everything is so interconnected now. It's hard to really pull something out,
Well, and we bring stuff up and it's like, but how many times have we said that?
Right.
And it's like, yeah, but this is different.
It is different and the same and different,
Well, every day's different. Every day's different, but the same.
Yeah. And so, there have been some interesting things cycling around. So that was something that we were talking about, and that it seems like we're in another cycle of cycling around, where there've been a lot of things that we thought were gone away, we thought we moved on from, that are popping up and pretty much biting us in the butt in weird and unexpected ways, right? So do you want to talk about where we started about, the dog and your daughter and everything?
Okay. Well, I guess I adopted an older dog and now we're 3.5 years in, not quite. And his blood work looks horrible and they're saying it could be lymphoma, it could be all kinds of things, but it's not good. So looking at the responsibility I have with that, and then at the same time, my older daughter, who was living here temporarily, moved out. So that left me with 2 pending departures and left me very much alone. And mentally, I get it. I totally understand it, but I find myself caught off guard. Like my daughter moved out with her dog. And I find myself doing something as simple as opening the blinds and am hit with a load of emotions and sadness and just from opening the blinds, because it represents it's tied to what it represents, like, oh, so the dog can see out, or so, oh, this or this or this. And that's what's been surprising me, kind of catching me really off guard. And I am pretty much alone now, with the exception of taking care of my sick dog, which, part of me is like, oh my God, how many years have I waited for this? And then part of me is like, now what do I do?
Right. Well, now there's it's funny because, and that's what's going on for all of us, is that these things are getting stripped away. No more distractions,
Well, no more hiding and no more excuses.
Right.
Like, oh, well, I have to do this because I can't do this, or I don't have time to do this.
Well, and that's become a big thing with the collective with COVID, hasn't it? Right. Oh, I can't do it because of the virus, right?
Right.
Which I've not done at all because it has not affected me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I haven't either.
But
it's limited us in ways that, oh, well, I can't do that because they've chosen to not do that because of COVID. Like whether it's, going out to a restaurant or, traveling internationally or lots of things like that. It's limited us, even regardless of whether we're choosing to.
Right. Well, and it's also prevented us from doing things that we would distract ourselves with too, right?
Exactly.
Which we talked about, again, a lot of things that are coming up, but they're coming together in a different way, right? And so, somebody else we know who's in our spiritual circle, like had the third car accident in like, I think 6 years or so,
Right.
this weekend.
Morning, Gloria.
Good morning, Gloria. Yeah. And so, and the thing is, it's like, okay. And so the first one I think was like being rear-ended, and this time it's been sandwiched. I'm like, okay. And being grateful to walk away from that.
Right.
Thing is to ask yourself, so what is it that's blowing up around me and getting more and more intense that I still have the opportunity to walk away from before it gets even worse? Right.
Right.
And those are the things that we talk about all the time, is like how to see things differently. Right. So one of the things what I was talking about on my Living the Shift podcast last Thursday had come from not just our conversations, but there's been a lot of stuff having to do with pets, like in the past months. Right. And the tendency that we tend to do is to just treat them like, okay, well, they're an individual, which they are, and they have their own journey. But they also have messages for us, right, to look at differently on things, because if they are our pets and they have found their way to us in some way, shape, or form, then they have a soul agreement of bringing something to the forefront that we might not have otherwise seen, right?
Right. Exactly.
And so, yes, they have their journeys. And a lot of times their journeys are very tightly tied to ours because of that, right? And and so it's like, all right. And yeah, and so that's what you're saying. You're looking at the whole thing with your daughter's dog and your dog. And I know you said to me last week, well, it just hit me that, that she'll be gone. And then I don't know when mine will be gone. And then I could be completely empty out,
Right.
And and so we have a lot of these things that are coming up, and what's happening, I think, for all of us is to look at things in a way. I think we're blind to a lot of things because we are so habituated. We have it so blindly. I mean, that's what's going on in the collective. That's why things are blowing up around us, because we have refused to look at what's broken or not working or not in alignment with our overall purpose.
Right. And I know, just from a practicality standpoint, you have clutter around your house, and it's always there. So you get to the point where you expect it and you almost just don't see it.
Yes.
And then you take yourself out of it, like you travel, or you go somewhere for a brief period of time, but more than just overnight, and you come back and it's like, where did that come from? And I think that what we're finding is we have stopped seeing what's wrong. Stop and just, we've accommodated it, and so that's just part of our normal behavior.
Right.
And
right. Instead of saying, okay, this isn't in alignment with
Right.
flow, we've sort of broken everything around it to try to make it fit, because it's more convenient, more comfortable. It's easier than to actually change it.
Or it's how we've always done it. So why would we ever want to change how we've ever done it?
Yeah. And so I know there's a bunch of meditations and stuff that are going on this week because of, the political discomfort in the United States and whatever. But the thing is, instead of us sitting there just saying, okay, we're gonna like set our energy to heal that or whatever, it's how about we set our energy to be able to see in the mirror what it is within us that is allowing this to have to get to such a big level,
right,
that it's become so explosive? Because if we all just attended to what was here,
right,
then none of this would be even in existence. Right.
Well, and the thing that I noticed about what I was experiencing as I was walking around my house is that mentally I have rationalized and explained everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the emotions that come out of nowhere. And I feel that they're tied to something bigger, and that's why I'm not expecting it.
Right.
Because I've mentally said, oh no, I this is for the best, and I understand this, and yes, this is what we're going to do. And then it's those, I think of them like rogue waves. Yeah, that come out of nowhere, and all of a sudden you're at calm seas. Right. And it's like, I think that we're in a ocean of rogue waves right now with everything.
Yeah.
And that's the challenging part, is how to look Look for the cause of the rogue wave. Look
Right.
deeper.
And that's what the purpose of the meditation is, that we talk about, always go inside,
Right,
finding that
right,
stillness. Now, here's the thing. Some of us, and so like I think about what my theme has been, because I'll talk about that in a second, because it's tied all this in together too, is that a lot of stuff, and I know for you the same thing, comes to me in the wee hours of the morning, like when I'm just in that space of between wake and sleep, right? When I'm
right,
just waking up. And then, or I'll just be like there. And instead of like laying in the darkness and letting my mind go, I will literally purposely put myself in a meditative state and be like, well, if I'm going to be awake,
right.
well, then let me be here, right? Let me be in
Yep.
theta or wherever, like we are, that brings us to that consciousness. And I get such insight sometimes because there's nothing there to distract me, no sounds,
Right.
no, activity, nothing to do, like, and it becomes much clearer. But, and that's the funny thing, is we are getting very creative with ourselves. And the key is to celebrate that, right? And thank ourselves, have gratitude for it, to say, okay, so it doesn't have to be completely explosive or completely debilitating, but I am trying to get myself the message in ways I'm otherwise blind to it.
Right.
So something, a conversation I had last week, whatever, really triggered me. And I'm like, but it had nothing to do with me. It had to do with like other people's interactions and whatever. And it was so funny. I'm like, why do I care? Like, why did this trigger me? And,
Exactly.
and why
Yep.
did this get me irritated? It wasn't like I got overly angry, but the thing is, whenever I even feel a little bit of irritation or judgment, then I'm like, well, what's that about? Right.
Yeah. The red flags turned into a siren with flashing lights.
Yeah. And so I woke up like, it was like probably 5:30 one morning, and it was before I would get out of bed, and I was sort of laying there and I'm like, okay, so why was I triggered? And then it just started just flowing, like what is that showing me from a different perspective or different angle that really is grating on me until I
Mhm.
look at it. And that just came in of this whole flood of things on self-judgment, on things that um well, it's all self-judgment because it's all me, right? But
Exactly. Yep.
at the end of the day, but it was about stuff that I hadn't even realized was there. I
Hmm.
had like buried it so very craftily.
Right.
And so I was very grateful to have this situation come where I was just mildly triggered and irritated, so that I would look at it, and committed to myself to look at it just by being like mildly triggered and irritated. And so then, what came to me was, there are all these things that we have these little mild triggers and judgments on, and all kinds of irritations with our ego has all kinds of irritations with our bigger picture, on what we agreed to, on what we have done, on what we haven't done. We judge ourselves
Hmm.
for what we are here to do. We judge ourselves for what we haven't done. We judge others for that because we judge ourselves for
Right.
that.
Well,
Right?
even what you think.
Yes. Yeah. And so I was guided to, it started with, forgiving myself, forgiving my business, forgiving, apologizing to and forgiving, my business for what I have and haven't done, for what I'm ready to do, for what I haven't done yet. And then it went on to all of these things, like, I forgive my mother, I forgive my father, I forgive my sister, my biological family, I forgive my friends. And it was like, not forgive, but it was like, that's where I started with the forgive. And then it was like, oh, and I apologize to, and I forgive, right?
Right.
Because that's both
Right.
sides of the coin. And then not only that, but then I accept and I have huge gratitude for those messages
Hmm.
that they've
Right.
all provided for me, so that I can get this and move on. So then I just went through this whole list, and it was like, I have, I apologize and have, and forgive, like my body, birth and life and death and money and culture and expectations and judgment itself. I apologize and forgive for judgment, and it was
Right.
like,
Right.
that's so powerful, right? And it was my pets and my children, my husband, my twin flame, all parts of me, all this, and it was just like, oh, and then the more I did it, and like, I've been doing that for like probably 5 or 6 days consistently. in meditation, and like it was like emptying some big freaking drain that I didn't even
Really
realize
was.
backed up, right?
And I mean, I even used that and said I forgive lymphoma, which is what the
Mhm.
dog potentially has. And I have gratitude for the messages that's brought me. And I mean, that was huge for me because that's been such an emotional subject.
Yes.
So, but I mean, I've done the same. I've gone through.
And it's like all
And
these things come up and it's like, oh, I forgot that. Oh, let's have that,
right,
you know?
right,
Yeah. And then I ended up getting to this place of all on earth, all of earth, all earth. I apologize to and forgive earth and all of it, you know? And I mean, it was just like all the things, and I even included like all the things that have ever, all the things I've ever felt wrong by, right? Like all
right.
kinds of stuff like, oh, it just kept on coming in. And so,
And
yeah,
death, and for
yes,
creating like judgment, like you
yeah,
said,
yeah,
all of that.
yeah, yeah. And for judging all of it.
Right,
And, you know, another one that I just thought of that would be good too is I apologize to and forgive unworthiness,
right,
because that's where the core goes to so many, for pretty much most of us, when we get down to what we have done or haven't done or hesitate to do and all that kind of stuff. Really powerful stuff, because the first day I did it, it felt fabulous when I was out there. And then I felt like I was walking through like waist high muck for the rest of the day. Like I brought up
yep,
so much crap. I was like,
yep.
I'm going to continue on that. And it's like every day felt more and more fabulous, you know, and so it's been great. And then when these little things start to come up, then it's so easy because they just bubble up, and then it's like, oh, okay.
Another bubble to pop. Yep,
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that.
right, right.
And that's what I feel like is really important for all of us, collectively, this week. And I'm not even talking about the specific political events or whatever,
Hmm.
but the energy, because that is all just symptomatic of the energy underneath it, right? So
Right, right.
so
Well, one of the things I included was I forgive government.
yeah. Oh, that's a good one. I didn't even do that.
I
Uh,
forgive government, and not only the players, but the processes that have been put in place, because it's all part of it.
mhm.
And that includes the judicial system, and I mean, all of it, all of it.
Yep. Um, yes, all of it. Not only all of that, but all of like deception. I forgive
Hmm.
deception. I forgive manipulation,
Abandonment,
abandonment, and then always of
betrayal.
course include the apologize for and forgive, and again I always include the and then accept and have gratitude for, because
Right,
it's
right,
all been the play that we've chosen to create, and look at how wonderfully we've created it.
right. Well, and the thing that I always bring myself back to when you're talking about forgiveness is it's not about the other party
Mm-mm.
or
No,
the
it's
other
energy
entity.
holders.
It's all about you, and
Yeah.
because you hold that within your cells. So it's again going in, opposite of what you think, going in, and it's just housekeeping, letting go of that betrayal, letting go of that emotion attached to whatever, government, death, illness, disease, all of those things that we've talked about.
Right, right. And it is, we've talked about the being in the backwards world, and I saw a
Hmm.
great, oh, I meant to bring it and have it sitting here, and I didn't bring it and have it sitting here today. It was a great, remember that thing I read to you in that book, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Such a great explanation on how, like, as the divine thought, we
Uh,
then it's reflected in duality back into the embodiment of us, like that's how we're created.
right.
So it's a
The
mirror
mirror.
to begin with, right? Which is the opposite of what we think. So it's it was it's been, that's the biggest, I feel like that's the biggest thing, and we can say till we turn blue in the face. The thing is, it's like, well, we can think it's all outside of us. We can think it's, the jerk up the block. We could think it's the jerks in office. We could think, like however we
Right.
want to term it, but they're all us.
Right.
And the opposite, you know, in the real opposite, it's the mirror, which means that it's all it's all from the same place. And
Right.
this is where it drives home the importance of it being inside of us. Because you're right, the forgiveness, we always talk about the forgiving. Oh, I forgive you, but that's because we're freeing. And when we do that, we free ourselves of holding on to the energy
Right.
of the irritation and the judgment and the
Yep.
blah blah blah, right? And then
Yep.
yeah, and at the end of my whole long list is like, and most of all, I apologize to him, forgive me.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's one of the hardest ones for all of us at the deepest levels, which is why then we so desperately cling to judging other people and what they're doing, what they choose, what they're saying. Um, Everybody's got their own journey and motivations, right? And they're all a different facet of the reflection of us. And so if we come to, well, when we come to peace with ourselves completely, like I have found that as I've continued to do that, I mean, the peace has become so much more profound.
It really has. It's, and it's in subtle ways that just permeate everything
Yes.
and give you that sense of, it's just, it's almost coming from a whole different place,
Yes.
letting all that go.
Yeah. Yeah. I just found, and I was thinking about it this morning. 'Cause I'm like, so, you know, this weekend, I could feel the choppiness all
Mm-hmm.
around me. Oh,
Right.
excuse my God. But I felt so clear and so
Right.
like, and like I said, every little bubble that came up was so distinct. And I was like, oh, okay. Shh, that's all gone. Thank you so very much. You know?
Right. And I found it easier to, excuse me, and to voice feelings that I've pushed down, tried to ignore, deny, whatever, and was able to voice them in a productive way versus accusatory or demanding or anything like that.
Right.
And I really feel that it was released at that point versus, I think of it like a fishing line. You throw it out there, try to get some results, reel it back in and save it for the next time.
Well, exactly. And that's something to talk, I think that's something for us to talk about here, because that's something that is one of the most challenging for most to grasp, is having the conversation differently. Right.
Right.
And
Right.
it's not having emotions. It's not ever getting angry. It's not ever getting, upset or anything in terms of consciousness.
Right.
It is always speaking from a place of complete self-responsibility and not
Right.
projecting it onto the person you're talking with, right?
Right.
So instead of you do this and da da da, and like you're terrible because you do this, but it's like instead, it's like you start having that self, and this is what these are the why exercises we have in like Trinity 1 class
Right.
that we have, and we're talking about also in our immunity consciousness class we're putting together. And it's like when you come to the place of saying, I am triggered by this because this makes me feel like this, right?
Right. Right.
Guess what? When I say that to you, well, when you did that, that made me angry because it made me feel like, like I realized that it made me feel like this.
Right.
Well, then it takes it off of your shoulders because it's all me.
Right. And in all honesty, when we're having a conversation with somebody, it is all about me,
It is always.
whether you admit it or not.
Exactly.
It
Right.
really is
It's
all
not
about me.
culturally okay to say that. It's all about
Exactly.
me, but
Exactly.
it is. But yeah, and so, and that's been a big, I have been trained by my guidance for years. It like kicked in the butt over and over again. Like, do not say a word until you step back and you take full ownership of where you are, what you're seeing, and know what is your emotion and your ego and what is from guidance, right?
Right.
And knowing how to word it from a place that is neutral and non externalized, right?
Right. Right.
And to be from a place that's neutral and a place of loving and holistic, even if it's a hard conversation, even if it is well, the ego considers it hard, right? Even if it's a conversation that is confrontative.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
you can do plenty of confrontation. You know, my husband and I, we redid our entire relationship on having conversations differently, right?
Right.
So when I would get irritated, and it took a long time for him to realize, when I would get irritated, I would just walk away. And then he would like come after me like, well, don't you want to talk about this and blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, no, because I'm triggered because of this. I'm triggered and it makes
It's
me feel
about me.
this. And I need to process this and figure this out. And if I feel like you'll help me resolve that, I'll come back to you. But I'm just gonna sit in this for a bit. And that's so much more productive in a relationship.
Well, it really is. And it's productive personally
Mm-hmm.
because it's that getting to that place of unconditional love for yourself. So then you can have that for others.
Right.
And I mean, how many times have we talked about that?
Oh, I know. But I think this is all, but it's all like, it's really all of this stuff is really worth repeating, because
Oh,
the
absolutely.
conversation is one of the most challenging that people biggest challenge that most have with being conscious, because we tend to react, right? And then sometimes we say something or we don't say something because we think the other person wants us to say something, right? Or we think they don't want us to say something. So then we become more vague. Like, so this is like, these are different ways
Right.
we get there, right? So either we get really vague, right? So that then they don't really get it, because then we're so afraid of hurting their feelings, or so afraid they're
Right.
going to judge us, right, for what we have to say,
Right.
right?
Or how we feel.
Or we come across as really combative and accusatory, um, and there's this like in between, this place of coming to this place of going, if I come from a place of love and self-responsibility, how you react to what I have to say has nothing to do with me. Well, it never does anyway, but it's much clearer
Right.
that if I'm not accusing you of anything, that I'm just saying, this is how it is. This is my understanding. And that's what I always say. This is my understanding. This is how it is. This is how I feel, blah, blah, blah. You know, and it's funny because you and I were talking about our conversations last week and how we're so used to, we get on the phone, we're texting, and you and I are just like, oh my God, this is just so triggering me, or this is, you know, like I'm so pissed and blah, blah, blah.
Such honesty.
And
Right.
it's so honest and it's so direct and it's so like, but then it goes right to in that conversation. So I was looking at it and I'm like wondering where this is coming from. Like, you know, we'll go right to like the self-responsibility part is, where is it coming from?
Absolutely.
What's it, you know, like blah, blah, blah. And this is all I come up with. And a lot of times we'll enlist each other's help, like, okay, this is what I'm getting, but I feel like I'm still missing something. Do you see anything else? And it's so much more productive because it's not going, well, and that person did this and this person did that, you know, or
Right.
so, you know, this is the thing. And I feel like this is really important in terms of what we're talking about and the stuff that's cycling around, is because as this agitation is coming up from the depths and it's really getting big, we really feel desperate to project it onto somebody or something else, which is what makes all this crazy anger and everything coming up around us.
Right. Right.
So the forgiveness, the apology that we're talking about, to all of the things,
Right. Right.
Duality. How about we even include duality? I apologize to and forgive duality, right?
Right.
Like all of the things, when we come to that place, then we start to wash out all of this pent up, you know, we were talking about sometime in the past several weeks, what the cells being washed out. When did didn't we talk about that here?
Yeah, because the kidneys
The kidneys, right.
Yeah. And yeah, when was that? It was a few weeks ago.
Not too long ago.
No. Yeah. Last
Yeah.
month. How about that?
That sounds good. Sometime in the last month. Yeah. But you know, like, and that's what, this is another big wave, like you're talking about, that rogue wave that can knock us over, but
Right.
we can right away help to wash it away, right? Because these are things that are in the cells. And if we take fully, you know, that self-responsibility and we say, okay, well, then I'm going to apologize and forgive myself for all of these emotions. I'm going to apologize to and forgive all of these things that are triggering me, and
Right.
have gratitude for all of them, because of creating this really colorful, you know, textured, saturated, big picture in duality. And I also apologize to and forgive the duality itself, right? And accept it and have gratitude for it. because that's what we wanted to create. So there we go. A half hour of cleaning up the entire world's problems.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But I feel like that's one of the going to be the big things. And I feel like doing that apology and forgiveness, maybe that's what we focus on today, because I think I think that's a big one for a good majority
Oh,
of,
I agree. I agree.
of us. Right. And if we really start to focus and to commit ourselves to continuing with that apology to and the forgiveness and the acceptance of and the gratitude, right? Those are all the stages that we have in letting stuff go.
Right.
Right. To say,
Well, and to create an ongoing habit of recognition of, okay, so I've forgiven all these things. At the same time, I'm not adding more in.
yes, right.
So it creates that like a self-cleaning oven.
Let the bubbles continue to pop. Right, exactly.
Right.
And just go poof. Let them pop
Right.
on their own. It becomes much cleaner. And I will say it most likely will take probably continue. It's like a continual thing because we've held so much down in the cells
Right.
for so long.
Right.
I do love that idea of, I don't know how, I didn't even think about unworthiness, forgiving unworthiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one because we judge ourselves for that too,
We do. We
for
do.
feeling unworthy, which is which is weird to think about mentally, but and so yeah, so let's set ourselves to be able to be aware of that today, and I mean, do we want to put all that in? Like, let's throw it all in.
Yeah, whatever comes up for each individual.
Yeah, all the stuff we said and more, right?
Right. Right.
To see it, all in our own purview, to be able to remember it in our all in our own purview versus what we
Right.
think is out there. It's all, recognize that it's all in here. And in doing that, to apologize to forgive, to accept, to have gratitude for all of it, and to allow those final messages to get to you so that you do come into that completion. I think completion is the last step, right? The remembrance of completion, right? Bam, we're all done.
Done. Done. Check in the box.
Check. So yeah, let's start with that, shall we? A little
Right.
thing today. All right, you ready?
I am.
All right, let's go.
Could have stayed in that space all day.
I was like, oh, this is where I just was a little while ago. It feels really good. But it was really funny because it was almost like we were all sitting around in this big collective thing. And it was like we had, what it made me think of was, the lottery when they do the numbers and they have like the ping pong ball things and it was almost like we had this huge vat of these ping pongs that were all of these different energies that we're holding on to. And we pulled the big freaking, etheric lever and they all just went, but they didn't like fall into something else. They just went into the void and it was like they just were gone. And I was like, oh, that felt really good and effortless and easy. And then I just stayed in that. It was almost like I was in that creative void space and it just felt so natural. It was wonderful.
I had seen on Facebook, I guess it was last evening, and I don't know who posted it. It might have been Gloria. It was a dog and it had its head in its owner's lap. And so you just were like looking down on the dog and it said, tell me again the story of how you rescued me. And I just
Oh
thought
yeah, I think it was Gloria.
I think it was too. And so I had sent that to my daughters and I saw that, but in that seeing that, it was like, tell me the story again of how I'm rescuing myself through this forgiveness. And
Yes.
it was just
Nice.
so
Nice.
incredibly
That
expansive.
just that feels
I know.
awesome. Yeah. Woo.
Really good. Yeah. So that's where I spent my time. It was really nice.
Oh, that just gives me tingles.
Yep. I think it was Gloria. She said, yep.
Yeah. So all of us, that's our task for this week. Stay in there, stay focused and present to all the little bubbles of triggers that come up within ourselves and with others and just what we see, what we want to judgment itself. Like just continue to go back and really flush this out because I feel like the more we do that, because it felt like what a huge flush that was, right?
Right.
And like I said, it could even bring up a little more irritation because the first day I did it, I was even more triggered than before. So just stay with that and stay conscious with it because, going out there, it feels fabulous. And that was my whole thing is, okay, that felt amazing. And then came back and got triggered. So there was obviously more to come up to forgive and apologize to and all that kind of stuff. So it's just like, I just keep on that. And yeah. And see if it helps. Well, it'll help all of us individually and then see how it helps outside and just know that it's a wave we can create.
Right.
Because it's all us.
That's right.
So on that, we're going to let you go. Everyone have a great week. We'll see you next time. This is Angela Coulter and
Sarah Sieg Avagnoni
signing off with this week's Ascended World. Have a great one.